Today, I want to talk about how characteristics and things we've experienced within our lives and our childhood can affect our characteristics and attributes that we have in a day-to-day basis. Now, I want to bring this disclaimer out here. Habits that I'm talking about are just everyday things that we do, how we act on a regular basis. It's not something that is the same as habitual and intentional sin. So we're talking about something that is a characteristic or a habit, a way a person does things. We're not talking about habitual sins or, intentional sins that people do to harm others or break rules and laws. Now, I was in the laundromat recently. I went to the laundromat, and when we got there pretty early, and it wasn't that crowded. But when we got there, this woman had all of her laundry baskets lined up, holding up probably at least 4 washers. And so I'm looking around because, I needed one of the washers that she was using because it was one of the larger washers. And she had all of her baskets set right there, blocking and taking up all these washers as soon as you got there. And I'm looking around like, there's no other washers? Are you using all of these? And so she grabbed one of her, she was getting ready to use everything. And so she went and grabbed her basket and said, oh, I'm going to use this one. I need this one. And so I was like, okay, so I can use this washer. So I went ahead and used the washer. So when it's time to dry my clothes, now I see her using one dryer, and so she's not using any of the other dryers. And so I see 2 dryers in the middle because I only need 2 dryers to dry my clothes so I can get them dried at the same time. So I get ready to take my little basket with my clothes inside, my damp clothes, and I'm walking over to this dryer, getting ready to do it. I'm right by the dryer, mind you. And she hurries up out of nowhere and grabs a basket and just rushes in front of me and blocks my path and takes the dryer. And I said, excuse me, I was just getting ready to use this dryer. She says, oh, I already have my dryer sheets in there. And so I'm looking for them. And I said, oh, because I didn't even know there was anything in there. But I realized what she had done was she had these dryer sheets that you take, like if when you're drying your clothes, these little fabric sheets that make the clothes smell good. She had placed one in each dryer. She was holding her spot for those dryers. So basically, she was putting dryer sheets in dryers that she wanted to use, even though her clothes weren't ready. And she was just basically saving a place for these dryers. It's like, okay. So I took my clothes and I walked down all the way to the other end, and I used these dryers down at the other end. And so then I saw some other people later on, they coming inside and they were complaining about how the woman was standing in the way, wouldn't let them use the dryers, was blocking all the dryers, and they had to move out of the way and use another dryer too because she was holding up everything. She was hoarding up the washers and the dryers. And so we were thinking, I kind of laughed and joked about it a little bit to myself and to, the person I was with. And oh, well, that's strange. Why is she doing all that? This is a laundromat. It's not a place where you hold washers and dryers. If you want your own stuff, this is a place where you're considerate of others. And we're just talking you wouldn't expect this type of behavior. And so I didn't think anything else of it. But the Lord was showing me this woman. I kept looking at her because I kept seeing her. And I was trying to stay out of her way because I didn't want any problems. And it's I just, I try to avoid when I see some issues with people like that, I avoid it. And so he was showing me how this woman had grew up in an environment, and he was showing me foster care, because a lot of times I had heard about where adults grow up and they were deprived of certain things. They couldn't have things because they were raised in foster care, or they were in group homes. They could only have a certain amount. They were rationed things out, and they could not literally have things, and things were not always available for them. He was showing me this woman grew up in that type of environment, and this is why she was hoarding up everything, because it's she was in that mode. She was conditioned to think that way, that it would not be enough, that she has to have this because she was constantly deprived in her childhood. And so I immediately understood. And so I prayed for this woman. I prayed for her healing and everything, that God could work with her and the issues that she has. And this is what the Lord was showing me, that, if a woman can grow up in this environment based off of what she has sustained. He was showing me how trauma can affect the behaviors of people. It can affect our characteristics and our day-to-day interactions and just our regular habits and how we interact with other people. Now, this woman wasn't breaking any laws. She wasn't doing anything to hurt people. She just had a strange behavior that would normally, be annoying to other people, would be annoying, and people would not understand it. But the Lord was showing me this. And so it's this is what's going on when you have compassion and you're merciful. You can understand that, people might behave a certain way. They might have certain odd characteristics or behaviors based off of something that they've gone through. We don't know what people have gone through, and we're quick to judge them and look down on them instead of having compassion and mercy. So when you're filled with the Holy Spirit will let you know that and show you how to interact with these people, where you can be a little more merciful to them, especially children. Because see, if adults are still affected by things that they've gone through, and they're in their 30s and 40s and they're still being affected by it. Imagine a child who's dealt with trauma and abuse, and you expect that child to be perfect, and then you penalize them for every single thing and not have compassion on them. This is something that God does not like, and he wants us to be merciful. And the people of the world, when you see people who are acting strange, or you see people who have odd behavior, instead of trying to understand and be compassionate and see where they're coming from, or what might have happened in their childhood to cause them to behave this way, the world usually will reject them, ostracize them, or punish them, or, be very confrontational with them to the point where they want to penalize them. And you see this a lot where they cancel people because of things, or people make a mistake. And again, this is not a habitual sin. This is not a person who's breaking laws and just using these excuses to mistreat people. There's a difference. Like I said before, there are people who will go out and say, oh, I can murder someone because I've been hurt. Yes, there's issues with people who have faced traumatic things in their childhood and they grow up to become serial killers, but that is not something that is condoned because of what you've gone through. You're supposed to get the help you need. And so that is something that we're talking about that's completely different. We're talking about characteristics and odd behavior that people might have. Like, for instance, you could have that one person who, they don't have any manners. They might eat with their mouths open and smack really loudly, or this person might, be quick to argue with everyone around them. They might be quick to become offensive to everything someone does because they're so defensive. They're on the fence because they've always been targeted. They might have been targeted as a child. Or you might have a person who is constantly in someone's face, seeking their attention or seeking approval, or wanting to do things to get people's attention because they're used to not getting attention when they were younger. And so people will make them feel like, okay, this person, something's wrong with them. And this person just has issues that are misunderstood because of what they've dealt with. People don't understand them because they have not gotten a chance to talk to this person to see why they behave that way. They immediately just judge them and criticize them and look down on them and isolate them because they're different, or because they have behaviors that are, not typical for society, or not something that is of the norm, or what we would consider a behavior that a person is supposed to have. And then you go and ostracize this person, you make them an outcast, or you want to retaliate against them and attack them and ridicule them and mistreat them. And this is something that God does not like, especially when it's happening to children. And this is something that he judges for. Because at the end of the day, we all have to be, accountable for the actions of how we're treating other people. This does not mean you have to just take whatever someone does to you and put up with abuse and mistreatment. But we're supposed to be a compassion for our fellow men and learn how to pray for them, learn how to be merciful to them, learn how to talk to them and try to help them overcome their struggles, or try to find out what's going on, or get to know this person and say, hey, what's going on, and have mercy for them. When you see someone struggling with something, you're supposed to have mercy, especially with children, not mistreat them, not harm them, not hurt them even further.